scrappers, Tom from the iScrap app. Today is Wednesday, August 8th, 2018. For those of you that are keeping track, 8/8/18. That means nothing at all except it looks cool on the calendar. Hope everyone is doing well, scrapping often. Don't forget, every Wednesday afternoon, right around 1 p.m. Eastern Time, we try to do our weekly reports. Feel free to tune in, ask questions. Hopefully we'll give you your answers. If you're watching this after we do our live feed, make sure you still ask questions. We'll give you links, and we're sure that other scrappers will tune in to help out get you the answers that you're looking for. So you can see behind me, we'll start off nice and quick. Copper, aluminum, steel prices relatively unchanged over the last week. That is a very positive thing. After the fluctuations that we saw for the last 4 or 5 weeks, as you'll read in the report that will follow these live videos, you'll see that most of the markets are down 15% or more over the last 5 weeks. So, with those prices decreasing, we want to make sure that you see that prices have stabilized over the last week. Does that mean that we should expect a more stable market for the rest of the summer? Again, if I knew that, I would be on an island broadcasting live with a pina colada or a cerveza in my hand. As you can see, nothing in my hands, there's nothing up my sleeves. This is not a magic trick. We don't know what the markets are doing, but we sure as hell are paying attention to them as closely as we can. So, great news. After months and months of delaying from our development company, I won't mention any names, but we are almost ready to have our new website released with more market news, more market pricing, an easier platform for you to learn about the scrap metal markets, for you to see what's going on, for you to have more links to our Facebook group to be able to talk. The amount of people that are talking, posting pictures, learning about other people's good and bad experiences in the scrap markets through a Facebook group has been really exciting to watch. I've learned a lot myself, and it's been really cool to see how and why people take things apart and what type of returns they're getting from different scrap yards throughout the country. A lot of people ask us if the prices are the same all over the place, and we've talked about this multiple times, and of course the answer is no. When you're closer to port cities on the east or the west coast, down south, you're gonna have higher prices because it's gonna be easier to export it. Or if you're more inland and you're closer to mills, then you have scrap yards that have easier access to copper and steel mills, you're gonna have an easier time to access it. But what we've seen is a very stable market over the last week or two. Copper prices, bare bread we saw reported 203, 217, 241, 231, 197. So, of course there's a 40-cent swing because of where you are. We've seen battery prices dropping with lead prices dropping about 10 to 15%. Lead prices we saw in the mid 60s, low 50s, and now where it's more in the low 50s, low 40s, 42, 47, 51 cents a pound for lead, which of course in turn will domino effect into your battery prices, with your battery markets off about 5 cents. We saw those prices in the low to mid 20s. A couple of yards had prices in the low 30-cent range per pound. So those are some of the things that we've seen. So it's a couple of things that we want to talk about. Feel free to ask questions at any time during this live feed. We'll talk about the other markets that are impacting everything. We've continued to talk about tariffs. We've continued to talk about trade. So the Chinese stock market, which I mentioned in the report this week, is down over 25% in 2018. Why does that matter? Well, that shows that a lot of these tariffs that have really been put into place have affected their markets. While the U.S. has seen an uptick of about 5% in 2018 overall, we still see the Chinese market down. Now, I'm not going to tell you that that's end-all be-all for the market. We're watching it. We're trying to stay in touch with what different markets throughout the world are doing. We've even talked to people lately about the Iran sanctions, and how the U.S. has said starting today and going another 90 days from now at the phase 2, that if any country is dealing or doing business with Iran, that the U.S. will not do business with that country. So that gives a lot of countries, a reason to not do business with them, and people will say, well, how's that going to affect the market? Because now we're not going to have any oil going from Iran to countries that are located in Europe, possibly, the United States, of course, and many others. And all these different factors are going to change gel and mold how the markets are changing. You know, we've seen people talking about the lithium ion prices and how all the different cobalt alloys are going to change where the markets are for the hybrid market and the electric market. And we're watching all these different things, and it is so tough to figure out what's going to go on and how one domino is going to fall and affect others. Maybe it's just a simple, you know, one hits the other and it's done, but maybe there's one after another and it's staged like some of these fancy videos that you see online. Speaking of which, I actually saw a domino effect video where a company had plastic pallets. They had like 500 or 600 pallets. Super cool. Look it up. Type in like plastic pallet domino effect. It's just kind of neat because it ties into the scrap world and using pallets. And anyway, so the markets are crazy. We're watching them, we're tuning into them. You know, we've seen companies reporting their second quarter profits, and 80% of the companies are beating their estimates, which shows that the US economy is really going well. Of course, things are always tough, and in the scrap market, we're hurting because the market has been so compressed. You know, with copper dropping 20%, 17%, I think we're at something like that, over the last 6 weeks. You know, many people forget that we're at the same level copper prices that we were a year ago. You know, people get used to those really high prices, and when they drop down, you get depressed and angry and mad and all the, you know, the different stages of grief that you may go through. And then you finally come to acceptance. And if you accept the fact that we're at the same place we were a year ago, that means we're really in a positive place. We just have to wait and see where things go from here. So we're just going to keep watching this and seeing where it goes and adapting and figuring out and talking. And that's why we constantly say, move material while you have it in the truck. Try not to touch things twice, especially the lower priced items. We still advocate selling your non-ferrous and not hoarding them, but a lot of guys, they work really hard. A lot of girls work really hard and they want to hold on to their copper and sell it when the markets are up. But the quick answer to the question, when are the markets going up? My opinion is no time soon. There's no real evidence that shows that the Chinese and the US are going to sit down and talk. There's more evidence showing that the Chinese are pulling out of the scrap market, and all of these things are going to take a long time to figure out. I think that it's going to take all of 2 years for this dust to settle, and you know, that's a long time, but in the big picture, it's a short time. This has happened a dozen times in the last 70 years, and it's going to happen another dozen times, and we're just in one of those fluctuating periods that we have to wait and see. Question?
We have a question and a comment.
Great.
Real quick, Bill says you do a great job. Keep up the good work.
Thanks,
Very
Bill.
informative.
Appreciate it.
Blake asks,
Blake.
is there a website that shows different grades of aluminum so we can separate it better? Painted gutters, new extrusion, etc.
Sure, the iScrap app. We have a section inside of the iScrap app, and we'll link to it when we're done, where we have lots of different metals that are sorted, pictures, descriptions. A lot of the metals have videos to go alongside them, so hopefully that will help you out. Another question.
Another question from Rich.
Hey, Rich.
What are you seeing on HMS and PNS?
Prepared or unprepared, I've seen HMS going anywhere from $195 to $275, depending on what area of the country you're on. For prepared, $20 less per ton, up to $30 less per ton for unprepared. PNS prices about $10 more, $10 less, depending where you are. Certain markets have a higher demand. You know, we've seen a lot of the export markets actually shrinking and a lot of more material staying more domestic. The problem is that a lot of the steel mills in the US generally will shut down for a couple of weeks during the summer, even though it's a busier time period. They have to service their machines. So when it's really, really hot, they tend to shut down during these hot streaks because it allows their furnaces to rest and allows their employees not to completely burn themselves out. So it all depends on where the material is going. Lee?
Another question again from Rich.
Rich?
He's sitting on about 1,500 cats. Does he sell them or keep them?
Well, I mean, if you follow my advice, Rich, I'd love to buy them from you, so you can always private message us and we'll let you know, what we can do from there. I'm a take them and go type of a guy. There's no reason to hold on to things. I've mentioned this story 3 different times, I believe maybe twice, about one customer that was waiting for $3 per pound Bear Bright. And it got up to $291, $294, but they wanted to hold out, and they were holding over 10,000 pounds of Bear Bright, and the market went down 50 cents since then. And because it went down to 50 cents, they're out $5,000, and I don't want to use the term greedy, but when you try to squeeze every single ounce out of something, you try to take that sponge and get every piece of water, every drop out, you're never going to win. You're never going to always hit it the exact right time. So my opinion is sell it when you got it. You can always take that money and make more money with it. I've used this phrase many times, and I'll use it many times again. I can't go to the grocery store with 100 pounds of copper, tell them what it's worth today, buy groceries, and go home. So that's how I look at any single market. Question.
On the same topic, Rich asks if you pick up in Fulton, New York.
Absolutely. Why don't you private message us? We'll make sure to reach out to you, and we'll figure out a good method to hopefully work together. And if we can't work together, hopefully you give us a shot down the road. But our company's been buying cats for a long time. We take pride in it. We might not have the highest prices, but I will tell you this. We will tell you what you have. If you don't like it, we will not take it. If for some reason there's a problem, we'll return your material, no questions asked. But I'm not here to advertise for us buying material. I'm here to update you. So private message us and we'll get to you. So other news, aluminum market relatively unchanged in the last week, although we have seen those prices down about 17% from the high back in April of 2018. Now again, aluminum prices are still much higher, but we've seen the overall market drop. But if you compare them to the last 5 years, aluminum prices are relatively unchanged. The market is where it was about 5 years ago, but this year we are down 17%. Yes, this has to do with tariffs. There, that answers your question. And until we have a sit down and an understanding between the world's largest consumer of metal, China, and one of the world's largest producers of metal, the US, metal scrap, we're going to have a lot of headbutting going on. We're not going to have a lot of handshaking. So we really have to wait and see how this goes. Overall, gas prices down slightly, and a lot of people ask how the gas is going to affect the metal markets. Of course, the gas affects the metal markets, as do the stocks, as do the different market changes. You have to just keep up with all these things, which is what we try to do. We're trying to change our formats for our weekly reports to give you more information on different topics, so you can start to piece together little things, put them all into a collective idea and figure out where the markets are going. Virginia?
We have a question from Dustin.
Dustin, thank you.
He asks, what about e-waste?
E-waste is something that's really interesting. I actually had a meeting with my employees this morning, and we mentioned e-waste and how our prices for scrap have dropped about 30-35% in the last 3 months, mostly due to a hard time exporting these items. The e-waste market is more of a reuse market, so a lot of the older stuff, a lot of the lower grade materials are really hard to move for scrap right now, especially because a lot of these things were going to the Chinese. They were taking the materials that were copper bearing. A circuit board on average has mostly copper for all the connections or little plates or all those little pieces, and those things were going to the Chinese. They aren't taking them right now, so you have a lot of rejected material that's accumulating throughout the United States and Europe, and there's not a great home for right now. Same goes for electric motors. But going back to your question about e-waste, I think that you're going to have to come to the harsh reality that prices are falling. There it is. While gold prices are relatively unchanged, down about $11 an ounce from last week, the problem is the scrap market is not going to keep up to what it should be, with the overall demand down, with restrictions on exports and shipping materials really at an all-time high. We have to watch and see where things go. So hopefully that answers your question. Guys, any questions you have, please do not hesitate to email us at info@iscrapapp.com, private message us on Facebook, chat us while we're on here, comment, post on our, you can talk more about scrap, continue to go scrapping, continue to share your stories, cash in what you have. It is not the time to hold with crazy fluctuations like we have. It wouldn't shock me to see copper fall or rise 50 cents in any 4-week period right now. So in my opinion, cash it out, take the money, make more money with the money. Holding it in barrels doesn't help you out. You know, you think about it, you hold 1,000 pounds of copper, best case scenario, you're jumping 40 or 50 cents, but that isn't gonna happen all the time. In my mind, there's a higher chance for it to drop 50 cents than it is for it to go up 50 cents. So that's 500 bucks on 1,000 pounds, and that's of a raw copper like bare bite tubings. Or tubings, not like a normal insulated wire. While the insulated wire market's very tough, hopefully we're starting to get that sorted out, but again, short-term, long-term. It's going to take all of 2 years for this market to have the dust settle and for us to move forward. Continue to post your prices, continue to ask us questions, continue to stay cool in the heat wave that we're having. We hope many of the residents in California are being safe with the fires that are going on. Our thoughts and prayers go out to you. Any other questions for us at the iScrap app, don't hesitate to ask. But until next week, I'll scrap you later.